This is FPSKivotos. Let's get started. If you're new here, hello. If you're returning, welcome back. I'm your host, Bridge. On this episode, we're going to talk about Miyu sniper rifle of choice. This is the Mosin-Nagant. It's used by the Soviet Union during World War II, and honestly, all throughout many wars in history. This has appeared in a lot of them. It's a very versatile and very good rifle. Miyu's in particular is the Finnish variant of it. They used it when they were trying to rebel against the Soviet Union, and so they have a little bit of a different variation with a couple different parts, and we'll be sure to talk about them as well. Getting straight into it, let's talk about the similarities that our rifles have with each other. There's not really a lot. The biggest thing, obviously, is the color, as you know, as usual. We got a nice white color. I spray painted it. I spray painted wood. Yes, I know. Yell at me in the comments. You ruined a rifle. It is what it is. I wanted to do this. This is my rifle. I bought it. I wanted to do this to this rifle and, you know, try to make it look as close as possible to her rifle. Do I feel kind of bad? Yeah. But was it worth it to me? Yes. It is getting yellowed because it is just white spray paint on wood. So it is what it is. I'm not too worried about it. You know, it still works perfectly fine. So it's not really that big of a deal to me. And to be completely honest, the only other similarity that our rifles have with one another is the little logo right here. This is Rabbit Squad. This is the name of the squadron of SRT that she's part of. And I had a friend named Shock to help me recreate this logo. It's very close to the original, so I'm really happy with how it turned out. Let's start talking about the really big differences that our rifles have. The biggest thing is right here, there is no optic. I don't have the optic. So with her optic and how her rifle is set up, it wouldn't actually work at all. So the way it works is that when you go to rack the action, pull it back, it comes forward. As you can see here, it's, you know, completely flipped over 90 degrees. And so if there is a optic set right here, because it sits like right here, when you go to bring the action back, you would just smack into the optic and you wouldn't be able to bring it back anymore. So for her, it wouldn't be operational at all. So it's kind of interesting that they went with that design choice. You need a very specific sniper variant. So for that bolt, it's a little bit different. It's curved, obviously. So it allows for the shooter to, when they rack it like this, it would be off to the side still, and it would allow them to actually rack the bolt with an optic mounted on it as well. When it comes to Miyu, she has a few weird inconsistencies when it comes to like her animations and stuff like that, but we'll get to that when we move on to that section. Another thing to talk about that's different, she usually has this little cloth shroud. I do have like a tablecloth that's the same color that I've wrapped around it in the past. It looked okay. It's not that big of a deal, as well as the leaves. Since obviously I don't have that optic, there's no real point for me to have that. The iron sights work perfectly fine, so I'm not too worried about how, you know, the cloth would be on it. When it comes to all the guns that I have right now for this project, this is probably the most different out of the group, just because I don't have the optic because of the bolt shape and the shroud and whatever. But other than that, I think it still looks pretty good. Like it functions. The Mosin, of course, is going to function. So, you know, I'm not too worried about how it generally looks cosmetically, especially since I wouldn't be able to use the optic anyway. Like I mentioned earlier, she has a few weird animations, and I'll definitely get to that when we talk about the battle animations, as well as she appears in a few different PVs where she's shooting her rifle, and it's really goofy. And I'm excited to talk about that with you guys, because it's just like, you can tell, like I mentioned last episode, the inconsistencies that they can have with like showing how the girls can shoot the gun is pretty interesting when, you know, the animators don't really understand how certain firearms work. If you guys have been enjoying this episode so far, please make sure to snipe the subscribe button from about 10 kilometers away from our current position. And please make sure to hit the notification bell to know when I upload next. Now let's get into the meat of the episode, her animations. When it comes to combat, she has two different cards. She has one as a striker and another one is a special character. When it comes to her initial striker, she's got two different shooting poses, one for standing and one for being behind cover as usual. The Mosin has an internal magazine capacity of 5, so she does shoot it properly where she shoots it 5 times. But one of the interesting things is when she goes for her reload animation, she only puts in 2 rounds into the chamber and closes it up, and then starts shooting another 5. I think that's a little weird. I feel like they should have just reloaded all 5, but there are some other animations with like some of the shotgun girls and whatever that are also like that, where they just put 1 or 2 shells in, so we'll let that slide for now. One interesting detail is that in-game, she uses 7.62x54R, which is the standard like Soviet-issued ammo, and is what mine is also chambered in. But since hers is the Finnish variant, it's supposed to be using 7.62x53R, which is what the Finnish use when they, they branched off with their ammo. As you can tell with the animations, it's not the hardest hitting round for when it comes to recoil, but it is pretty cute and interesting to see her like jolt back a little bit when she is taking a shot. She is a pretty small statured girl, so having her take the brunt of that recoil is pretty neat. Another neat little detail is when she actually is behind cover and crouched, she takes a little bit less of the recoil because she's able to, stabilize it a little bit better. And as you can see when she's behind cover, she also only loads in 2 rounds rather than the 5. When it comes to her passive skill, she gets down in the prone position, gets covered in a whole bunch of leaves, and takes a nice accurate shot at the target. When it comes to her EX skill, she gets dropped from a high place, falls into a trash can, and peeks out with some binoculars to mark a target for a weakness debuff. It's a little odd, but seeing her in the trash can it's kind of cute, but it's a little sad at the same time since she's not really noticed by anybody else. Now, moving on to her swimsuit card, since she's a special, she doesn't actually use her rifle. She's more of like an artillery style character. It's pretty interesting. She gets surrounded by a whole bunch of seagulls, tosses the fish out, and they basically go in for the kill and go in for a barrage of attacks onto the enemy units. It's honestly super sad to see her get bombarded by these seagulls, and when she's on the field for the few seconds that she looks so defeated, and as she walks away, she just poofs out of existence. And the last little bit of animation we're going to talk about is her appearance in the first anniversary PV. In this promotional video, they're fighting off against the KSPD. As Miyako and Saki are behind a piece of cover taking a lot of oncoming fire, Miyu decides in her best interest to go in there guns blazing. She shoots her rifle 3 times without racking it once. It basically turns into a semi-automatic rifle that has no action at all. It's really weird, and it's honestly really funny to see how on display this misanimation is. I don't blame the studio, I just think it's really funny, and I'm kind of excited to see if there is any more of these fuck-ups in the anime. I have a really soft spot for this rifle in particular because this is the very first gun that I bought when it came to this project. I really just wanted the Mosin, and when I bought it and I was using it and whatever, I kind of just had the feeling that I kind of wanted to showcase how these guns operate and some of the inconsistencies that they have with the animations and whatnot, and just show that off to the people of YouTube. As always, I am excited to show off all the other weird creation guns that they have in the game and how I can recreate them as best I can in real life. If you guys have made it to the end, thank you very much. I appreciate it as always. The more and more guns that I get, the more and more time it takes for me to make these videos. So I do hope you guys really enjoy it and stick around to watch more of the weird content that I show off with these guns. And with all that out of the way, I've been your host, Bridge. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.